Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank our witnesses for being here again today. I am, along with so many of my colleagues, deeply grieved by Turkey's outrageous offensive against the Kurds in northeast Syria. I remain worried about the consequences and the long-term effect of Turkey's actions will have on our national security and our Kurdish allies who made immense sacrifices to defeat the Islamic State. Our top priorities must be to contain ISIS so terrorists cannot regroup, to prevent a genocide of the Kurds, and conduct a safe repositioning to ensure stability in the region. I do not want our troops to be in Syria indefinitely, but we must act wisely, consult with diplomats and certainly defense officials, and ensure that we are not creating a bigger mess for ourselves and others in the region in the future. Ambassador Jeffrey, Turkey wants to clear Kurdish People's Protection Units, or YPG, fighters from a swath of land nearly, supposedly 20 miles deep and 270 miles long. The YPG leads the pro-democracy Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, which have been the heart of the fight against Syria's brutal dictator, Bashar al-Assad. Ambassador Jeffrey, how will the evacuation of Kurdish forces from Turkey's so-called safe zone affect the SDF? And is the U.S. continuing to cooperate with SDF forces and in what capacity?
First of all, the SDF generally was not fighting the Assad regime, but rather was focused on fighting Daesh, which was more than a handful. At times there were engagements, firefights between the two, but that wasn't their primary responsibility. In terms of the withdrawal from the zone, there has been, for a good number of years, no real strong ISIS presence in that area. Manbij, where, according to the Russian-Turkish agreement, the YPG is also to be withdrawn. Again, I have big questions as to whether that will happen. But if it did happen, I would be worried about Manbij because there are some ISIS elements there. Where most of the ISIS elements are, south of that reservoir, along as you're looking at it, the Euphrates down to the Iraqi border, that is where the SDF has most of its forces and where we still have our own people. As I said, we're executing a deliberate and strong withdrawal, but we're doing this in a way that allows us to consider, should we keep some troops on? Should we keep
cooperation is still ongoing?
And the cooperation is still ongoing as we work our way through what the longer-term situation will be.
And I know that we've touched on this a bit with previous questioners, but hours before the U.S. brokered ceasefire expired, we know now that Turkish President Erdogan held talks with Vladimir Putin. Ambassador Jeffrey, what do we know about the content and outcome of the talks, and how are we engaging with Turkey to prevent Russia from increasing and improving its long-term operating ability in Syria?
The agreement calls for Russian military police and Syrian, that is Assad's border police, to move into those areas along that strip that you described to the east and west of where we worked the ceasefire deal with the Turks, the central 130 kilometers, to supposedly negotiate a withdrawal of the YPG, not a military action, but a withdrawal of the YPG, and then to allow joint Turkish-Russian patrols 10 kilometers deep. This is somewhat similar to what we negotiated with the Turks back in August, that they then basically reneged on when they launched their offensive. Frankly, our deal was a better deal for the Turks than the Russian one is, and so I'm very cynical about, or skeptical rather, about what the Turks are going to get out of this deal.
And so we do believe that this agreement, so to speak, has done more to increase Russia's long-term ability to operate in Syria. Would that be a fair assessment?
Anything that allows Russian forces or Assad to move into other areas is a problem for us in trying to find a decent and democratic solution to the overall Syrian crisis.
Thank you. We thank you both for your service, and I yield back.